They're not the solutions they promise to be. And you love me, don't cry to me, Argentina.
Often today.
The
Twitterland, the most fun place and the
is
most friendly place on earth. You gotta love it.
I
So John Heyman tweeted
always
18
love
minutes ago,
you.
one potential issue here is the
All
Astros and
through
Dodgers are
the
thought to be the preferred teams for Verlander, who has a full no
wild
trade.
day. Oh, you're
But keep in
here.
mind, last time Justin Verlander was on the market, he was said to prefer the Dodgers or the Cubs.
Don't keep your distance. And as for fortune, and as for fame, I never invited them in. Oh, it seemed to the world they were all I desired. They are illusion. They're not the solutions they promise to be. The answer was here all along. I love you, and I hope you love me. All right, so no Ham today. He's on a mission of fatherhood, and he is a good father. And did I sing in church? No. Believe it or not, I'm too embarrassed to sing in front of anybody. Believe it or not. When I was in one of my schools, the singing coach asked me to sing, and he ridiculed me in front of all the students. So I've always been embarrassed to sing. But I think my mother was she said she was something. But then again, she was always good in something. All right, let's see where the stock is trading. All right, 541. And I'm going to guess it's under 1 million shares, but let me put my eyeglasses on. Nope, I was wrong. It's 1,030,000 shares. So in the last, I don't know, 45 minutes, an hour, they've traded maybe 200,000, traded 200,000 shares. It's all fraud. And I give congratulations to Jeff Easton and Philip Vallier and the people from overseas who were working with them, and that tremendous research analyst on Seeking Alpha, Mike Dion. Tremendous job they're doing here to get the stock down 51 cents. Bravo. Obviously, this is a stock to sell. The earnings are exploding. Well, the revenues, but earnings will be next. And but whatever. We'll see how it goes from here. Hey, KYP. Just realized it's a little bit hot. How's that? I did that for KYP. KYP. Good evening. What's up? What's up? What's happening? Pete. Abdul Razak Kifek. Ryan. Expulsonex. DR. Star. Gerard. Don J. Lisa. Mike K. Short squeeze is not in progress. Well, Mike, I certainly give you top scores for the obvious. No, I haven't yet. And in fact, I should have. I know, Keith. I know, Keith. Some of the obvious things in life. But, wow, Barry sold at the top and buying back now. Wow. Ram. Yeah, it's a little hot, hotter than hail, but I've got the name here. I've been actually a little bit busy today, and now I decided to do this, but I need to call this place. I'll do it first thing in the morning. Anyway, so I don't know if I don't really have I don't have a, no, Gerald, I don't think they'll ever run out of shares to sell. And I'm not being a jerk. I don't believe they'll ever run out of shares to sell. That's, I realized as I'm saying it that I sound like I'm being a wiseacre, but I'm not. No, because they sell non-existent, fraudulent, counterfeit shares. They sell shares that do not exist. The SEC doesn't care. Gensler doesn't care. Robert Cook at FINRA doesn't care. FINRA doesn't care. The over-the-counter markets don't care. Your brokerage firms don't care. They take, I went out with my girlfriends last night, and I spent the night on Sarah's couch as an excuse, and they looked the other way. So no, Gerald, I don't think they'll ever run out of shares. But what is hard to understand is it's not free. One gentleman told me that if you short a stock or sell without delivering, you sell long wrong. And I think these guys get more exceptions from behavior than Hunter Biden. But what I was told, if it's under $1, they need 500 times the sales price. So if they're selling stock at I don't know, 50 cents, you need to put up 250 in the account as a maintenance requirement. Well, what happens after the stock starts going above that dollar number, the maintenance requirement and the margin requirement, the house requirement, goes up lockstep. And in some cases, it doubles. We don't know. And they may have all sorts of exemptions. But the bottom line is it's not for free. Now, the whole game with reverse splits, which are not always bad, it's just in the context of this kind of situation, they are bad, because just using that 50-cent level, if you have to put $2.50 up against 100 million shares, that's a lot of money. If you do 100-for-1 reverse split, because it's in the contract, because you're going to get kicked off the exchange, all of a sudden you've got 1 million shares instead of 100 million shares to have that $2.50 against. This is the gamemanship, so they're able to take money out without paying taxes. And Gary Gensler doesn't care. It just doesn't care. The SEC doesn't care, because everyone there is revolving door. They just want to get on to their job at Goldman Sachs. And the over-the-counter markets, they collect big salaries, they smile, and they don't care that you get destroyed. And apparently the IRS and Congress do not care either. FINRA doesn't care. So it's a bit of a nightmare. But Gerald, the point I'm trying to get to is what does matter is money. And in the case of Finger, I don't know if that's what you're talking about. Finger right now is 542. Bravo on Jeff Easton. Bravo on him. He's got the stock down from 618 this morning down to 547, all with fraud. All with fraud. But Gary Gensler will not examine that. FINRA will not examine that. If a stock goes up unexpectedly, FINRA will examine up. Down, they don't care about. Down isn't fraud to the regulators. Down is cleansing. Down is shining sunlight on the extravagance of CEOs and the promises, because they don't give a shite about you. They don't care about you. They're just want money under management so they can give you a little piece of it and then they can strip it. They just strip mine. Trillions of dollars. They just strip it. So Gensler can be worth $125 million. Janet Yellen, who's, I heard Jim Rickard say, was a, what's that word for hires that meet civil rights? It's a different word. Anyway, she was just a hire to check a box, or she's the Peter Principle. But she's extraordinarily wealthy. $500,000 a speech paid for by Goldman Sachs. Extraordinarily wealthy for being a dunce. You guys are smarter than Janet Yellen. You guys could sit and rattle off information, whatever your chosen field is, much more intelligent than Janet Yellen. She's got, but anyway, Gerald, I'm going off too far afield. The point is, when Finger is up $4 from just 6 weeks ago, $4 times 150 million shares. You can use a lower number. I'm going to go ahead and use that because I believe it, but you may not. That's 4 points times 150 million shares. That's $600 million. $600 million that is being lost. And it's possible the margin requirements have at least gone to that number, but they could be higher. It could be $1 billion margin requirement here in the United States. Now, I'm starting to think that Jeff Easton at Lind Partners is a front for a bunch of these people out of Germany shorting. Maybe they're getting us back for the war. Whatever you do, don't mention the war. But, Gerald, the point is, Jeffries, what was the other one? National Securities Corp, I think. And there was a third one. These are the reported broker-dealers that Lind Partners uses. I don't know who they use out of Germany. But when it goes against these firms, they start losing real money, and they will cover. So it won't matter how much these criminals sell, because where they're going to be trying to sell is going to tell them, hey, you got to meet your margin call. We're not going to take any more orders. So that's where we're headed, I think. I think and by the way, if you had a modicum of buying on top of that, these stocks, I think Finger could be $10, $15 before you could say, how does that go? All come in free. Oh, Ryan can fix my AC. Well, Ryan, maybe I'll do that, but yeah. Hey, Ryan, you do AC work? Well, Ryan, I'm wondering if my problem is I just can't make this Honeywell thermostat work. That's what I think might be the mistake. And I think it's great, Ryan, that I don't know how it come across, but those kind of skills in the next period of life are the ones that are going to get paid. Wankers, bankers, they're going to be driving taxi cabs. I changed the batteries, and but Ryan, what happened, or Dan, what happened? I think when the battery went out, that might have unset, whatever, because I just didn't play with any buttons. That might have been it. But you have to set every day in the week, and then you have to set 3 or 4 times during the day, and then you have to hit a button, and it's just a nightmare. Well, Gerald, where are your call options in August? I lost a bunch in, I lost a bunch in July, and I lost call options in Finger in November and December. So I understand. And right now, my opinion, I didn't do a lot, and I thought I wrote it down, but I didn't. But today I purchased, but Gerald, let me just say something. The premiums are massive, but they're down. They're smaller than they were, but they're still massive. Justin Verlander just went to the Houston Astros. But I bought the 7s today and the 9s today. So my attitude was, you know what? If you're gonna pull this back and you're just gonna manipulate it, I'm gonna try to take advantage. I didn't buy a lot, but I bought the August 7s and the August 9s. Now, Gerald, again, I'm talking to you, but anybody else that cares, we're already August 1. So this is huge risk. I think the market is telling you this stock is ready to go higher, that somebody is buying, and someone's buying very professionally. But at some point, I'm going to want to roll some of these calls into September, even if I get fewer of them, because I have no idea if it's going to run this month or not. I have no, for that matter, I don't know if it'll be September. But if I can keep some of my chips, my bullets alive, not violent bullets in the sense of bets, alive, that's what I would do. But I'm telling you, I bought more, Gerald, because I think it's going to go higher. I think this pullback here is a pause for the cause. It's all manipulation. It's all fraud. It's racketeering. It's collusion. It's market manipulation. It's spoofing. They spoofed on the open. Gary Gensler doesn't care. He should be ejected from that job. And we should break up the big banks. But at a minimum, we should say no one who ever worked with, or will work with Goldman Sachs can ever be hired by the SEC or FINRA, or Morgan Stanley, or JP Morgan, or Bank of America Merrill Lynch, or Wells Fargo, or UBS. Just can't work at the SEC. Or we break up these banks so there's a lot of them, and then the rules get followed. But these banksters are stealing from you. And they try to tell you it's okay. who are you going to believe, me or your lying eyes? But they steal from you. And this is one of their $1 trillion theft. It's trillions of dollars. Trillions. And Gensler doesn't care. He's blind. There's nobody blinder than he who just won't see. And ain't it a shame if you won't give your love to me? Has anyone heard that if Trump gets elected again, Patrick Byrne will become the next SEC chair? If that's true, I'll put in my CV and I'll ask Patrick Byrne if I can be the janitor that cleans the halls for him. Yeah, R.C. LaBelle. That's my point, R.C. LaBelle, is if you didn't trade out and they pull it back, this is a game of it's a 9-inning game, or it's a 4-quarter game, or it's whatever analogy you want to lose. But if you want to still fight it. The thing to do now, in my judgment, it's not advice, is to buy. It's to buy. I believe Kenny Boy, with over 1 million in volume, is holding back buys and allowing fakes. I don't think Ken Griffin has anything to do with this trading here. He does front run. He sets up, he tells Congress and tells the credible that he's providing liquidity. No, he's not. He's just front running every order out there. He's a thief. And just because you can get it codified and people don't quite understand it, so you can argue with yourself it's legal, in your heart you're thieving. And Ken Griffin is a thief. He's a thief on a massive scale. I don't know why anyone would go in the Colombian drug cocaine business. Just open up for less than $1,000, open up a financial firm in Frankfurt, Germany, and just start slaughtering American companies. Nobody here cares. Make trillions of dollars. You're not going to go to prison. It's white collar crime. If someone gets caught with the wrong amount of cocaine 3 times, it's 3 strikes, you're out. But if we'll see what happens. But John Hurry over at that Utah firm violated the cease and desist order 36,000 times. He won't go to jail. He'll sign a plea. He's a white boy, and his wife is white, and she's a good person. She's a mother. Hardest job in the world. Harder than ditch digging, harder than being a soldier, harder than climbing up the top of a building and putting in scaffolding, harder than the plumbing, harder than truck driving. Hardest job in the world. So she'll won't go to jail either. Scottsdale, Arizona. That's it. Alpine Securities. Hey, Jenny, Rebecca. Don't take cocaine into Singapore. I'm not sure I would take fake shares into Singapore either. GTII, I think it's a good time to buy an Oriental rug, a Persian rug. But much like Ham has said to you, I don't have that chart. Let me see if I can find it. I think Finger is in the pole position now. It's not because I'm changing my opinion on anything else. It's just you let the market tell you This is the old one. But I still, this is the old one. But this is amazing. This pullback is all normal. Comes up here at 750. Here's $9, $10. And that's $70 up there. 68.75. That's the old one. The new one says 70. 546. So bravo to Lynn Partners. I think they're about to be hit upside the head with a 2x4. That's my prediction. Well, that's right, Deacon Blues. GTII could blow past finger in a squeeze. I don't think halts on NASDAQ are going to stop the squeeze in finger. It is just going to allow the pressure to keep building up. But it was 542 a minute ago. It's 542 now. 540 bid. But there's no volume. It's all criminal violations of securities laws. And Gary Gensler at some point, by either his ineptitude, his stupidity, or his laziness, or his complicity. Now it's 532. Should be fired. 532. Down 60 cents. I didn't get my AC fixed. So they've taken it down since I've come on with you. I actually forget where it was, but it's about 20 cents they've taken it down. No volume. No volume. It's fraud. Gary Gensler should be arrested and put on trial. And everyone at the SEC should be given their walking papers. This is a catastrophe for the American stock market. Look at it this way. If half of all our certificates are fraud in this American stock market, who knows what it is? That means money has been funneled out of the U.S. economy over to Germany without paying taxes, and it's all a house of cards. And that's what your grandchildren are going to have to live with. All right, it's under 640. It's been as low as 532. Well, shorting should be a legal, hog farmer. Ham has been working for a long time on an exchange somewhere, but no one seems to want to pick up the ball on it, where shorting would just be illegal. Legal or not, no shorting. Oh, they're trying to get it below 529 to turn the seller computers back on. Yeah, so Questrade obviously doesn't have any shares of MMTO, of Nextbridge. Clintons were the worst thing that happened to America. Well, it could be the whole generation. It could be the whole generation. Gary Gensler is trying to punt this mess to the next figurehead and parachute into corner. Absolutely, M. Echo. Absolutely. I didn't say that, R. Tuck, but I think you're right. A lot of squeezes start. I don't know if it's the low point, but when you look at the charts, the stock seems to break out, and then they get it down, and then all of a sudden it goes from the lower number. So it really is, this is a Pyrrhic victory. Much like the elephants that went over the Alps and battled Rome, Carthage was wiped off the map after that. But we're coming down. I wish I could find my other chart. I think this is all very normal, this pullback. It's very low volume, 540. I wouldn't be surprised to see the stock close in the green by the end of the day. But I won't be alarmed if it doesn't. I won't be alarmed if it doesn't. Man, it's hot. Look at this. Finger motion. 5 smackers at benchmark. We are initiating a coverage of finger with a buy rating and a price target of 5. Finger's long-standing partnerships with top telcos, coupled with their proprietary technology and capability to access funding, ensures its top-up business is stable and growing. And it's also a gateway for data collection. The company's growth outlook is set to accelerate meaningfully this year and next, underpinned by the imminent commercialization of big data. But you better sell. Hurry up, sell. Get us out. Sell. Who always wants lower, Mr. Gensler? Criminals. Which I really believe, Gary Gensler, if you're watching this, I think you are part of the criminal organization. I think you were captured, paid for, whether it's a nod and a wink or it's actually as brazen as the text messages and meetings Eric Trump had with China and Donald Trump while he was president. Big guy, 10%. Should be ashamed of yourself. But hey, I don't have to be you. Only you do, Gary. Only you have to be you, Gary. Only you have to look in the mirror and see you. Our price target of $5 represents 1.6 times next year's revenue estimate of $126 million. The multiple is in line with our China Internet Group. We acknowledge that the company deserves a higher multiple, but we've decided to take a discount. As the company proves its track record and shows a healthy revenue mix from higher quality, more margin segments, we are expecting a meaningful re-rating upward opportunity. In particular, as we mentioned earlier, Finger is expected to break even in the fourth quarter of this year and turn profitable next year. We view these catalysts as a reason for an upward revision of our targets. That's benchmark. And I paraphrased it a little bit, but I didn't lose the meaning. All right, so 536. 1,130,000. Well, R.C. LaBelle, you know that doing the right thing is a hard thing to do. Gensler's not a hard man. He's a weasel. I watched him in action. He's all glad handing, networking. He's a deflector. He talks with his hands and he intellectualizes, and people go, "Wow, he's so smart." But his core, he's a mouse, not a man. And it doesn't matter. If he leaves, Goldman will just put another person in. You know, Rebecca sent me a thing, and I should print it out. I don't know if I can find it quickly, but it was kind of the 6 degrees of separation. Who was that actor? Kevin Bacon, 6 degrees of separation. Everybody in the United States government worked at Goldman Sachs. After you read this, that's what it feels like. Goldman Sachs has captured the regulatory environment. It started, I'm sorry to say, Democrats, which I'm one, it started with Bill Clinton convincing Congress. Bill Clinton got more Republican legislation through Congress than any Republican ever could. The third way. We'll do it the third way. I did not have sexual relations with that woman, Miss Lewinsky. Now listen to me. I'm only going to say it once. Well, that was the beginning of the end, because banks can't regulate each other. And then on top of it, the banks now control the regulatory environment in Washington and the politicians. There's only 2 politicians out there that seem uncontrollable. I won't mention them. One's a Democrat and one's a Republican. And there's another one, an independent. I'd say there's 3. Amongst our weapons are fear, surprise, and almost fanatical devotion to the Pope, and the comfy chair. Lucky's doing great. We had a really long walk this morning, early in the morning. We walked for about an hour and a half, which very slow, but he loved it. And he's a good boy. We met several dogs who were cuter than they deserved to be. I never really thought Monica was cute, but that's just not my type. What's that? Available. Well, the thing is, they don't care about fixing it because it's trillions of dollars. I don't think the human mind can comprehend. To most of us, $100,000 would be a lot of money. And then you go to $1 million, that's a lot of money. And then you go to $1 billion, most people couldn't spend $1 billion in their lifetime. But then go to trillions, starts to be meaningful. Well, Monica wasn't innocent herself, but he was a man in power. He was old enough to know better. I mean, her goals were questionable. She had had a long-term affair with a married art professor. I forget the school. And so she wasn't innocent. But that does not change his obligation to not take advantage of a 21-year-old girl who probably had more experience in her short life than he ever did. Maybe. I don't know. More real experience. I lost the quote, so let's see how it's closing. Oh, they're getting it down. They're getting it down. Good for them. I couldn't be prouder of them, and Gary Gensler can't be prouder either. Gary Gensler could not be prouder. 524, 1,190,000 shares. Absolutely. You've got to kill this stock. Revenues are growing exponentially. They're implementing their strategy. There is no country risk because they maintain their books in pristine order. And Gary, bravo to you. Really, Gary. I think the destruction of the over-the-counter markets is something that Goldman Sachs has wanted for a long time. So bravo to you, Gary. We are, my hat's off to you, Gary. The job you're doing, whew. A man with your supposed brains and your care and your reputation as a regulator, I think you're doing a kick-ass job. So now we got a snapback. It's still only 1,200,000 shares. Brian G., any West Christian sightings? It's only been 6 damn months. Sick of this fraud. Look, number one, you're never going to get a sighting of West Christian. He's an attorney. So he's in the middle of cases. I can't talk about that. Can't say that. What I can tell you, it's worthless. It's only been 6 damn months. You're talking about MMTLP. Get used to it. I think MMTLP, I'm in MMTLP. And I would love to have that money back. I would buy all of Finger as I could. But just have to get used to it. Until there's the only two things that can speed up MMTLP, one, a regulator. I don't see one. Do you see one? Someone that just says, we've looked at it and we've got to fix this. It's not Gary Gensler. It's not Virginia Country Woman. It's not Robert Cook. It's not Goldman Sachs. I don't see where there's a regulator that's going to insist that this gets resolved. But if that comes, great. The other thing that could do it is as they go through the legal process, which is laborious, it is slow. Lawyers have to get evidence first into their brain. If evidence is in your brain, it doesn't count. That's speculation. The only evidence that matters to a lawyer is evidence that's in her brain. And it's preferably on black and white piece of paper. And then they put that evidence into the court record. And then they duke it out. They object. Your Honor, your offer. And it goes on and on and on and on. Months go by. But as that information tightens, as they go through the canard, that this was just greed, caveat emptor, Jim. Thank you, Jim Cramer, on the part of all of us Bernie Bros buyers. After they get through that one, then they're going to go through the next canard, that this was fraud on the part of the management at Torchlight. Then they're going to go through the canard, oh, well, the market price, because lawyers have no imagination. They're going to go to the data point that says that the stock is worth $2.87. They got to get through that lie. Then they got to get through the lie, well, just give it to the original holders of Torchlight. How do you figure that out? But anyway, they'll go through that lie. Then they'll go through the lie that why don't we just unwind all the trades? They'll go through that. Then they'll go through, we're not going to offer them free trading. We're just going to give them a price, a little bit of upside, and they should settle for that. $12, $15. And if they don't take it, they're out of luck. They'll get through that canard. The thing you have on your side is 5 very smart, very wealthy, bulldog investors that are going to fight all these lying attorneys, all these jerks on the other side, and they're not going to let any of these things settle. But you want it immediately. I want it immediately. It's not going to be. It's not going to be. The legal process could take another 5, 6, 7 years, 8 years. The only thing that's going to speed it up, regulatory balls, Congress somehow gets up to speed and says, if you don't do this, we're holding you in contempt. Or I suppose there could be a groundswell of public pressure. I suppose that could happen. The realization that as they go through all those steps of legal chicanery, and as they get closer to the truth, which is the system owes you an extremely valuable recompense. I think it's going to be trillions of dollars. As we get closer to that, the lawyers all of a sudden will want to settle. And then you're going to be disappointed because nobody will go to jail. It'll be wrist slap time. But hopefully, it'll be a lot of money in your pocket. But I don't see it being quick. So 6 months have already gone by. Get ready for another 6 years. It could be years. Unless public pressure, a regulator who cares, some information is so brazen that it bursts out on the front pages of newspapers everywhere around the country. I actually think it might require a new president. So I'm sorry to say, MMTLP is going to take a long, long time. That doesn't mean you're going to lose your money. They've got it down to 520 in the aftermarket. Good for them. I'm impressed by these guys. They are so good. They're fighting the world, and they know the value of this stock. Not benchmark, not the company, not the contracts, not the telcos in China. The number one telco in the world, I believe it's number one. Well, it's number one in China anyway, and number 3 in China, work with Finger. But the criminals at the Lin Partners know they shouldn't be. It just gives me such a good feeling in my heart that Jeff Easton and Philip Vallier, Sam Chung, and Kim Young are looking out for us in such a healthy way. Just, it warms the cockles of my heart. 544. Well, Gensler's not worth talking about. He's a nothing, I'm telling you. He had a chance to be something, and he chose the path of nothingness. So it's not even worth talking about him. Fingers on an AMC track towards the upper fours, 510. Well, I don't know what you mean, because that's how AMC traded, or that's where AMC is now. Vinman, I respectfully, AMC is a theater company with, to me, quite minimal. It's a mature industry. It's got huge debt. It's got a CEO that couldn't give a flying film, and it was shorted by dozens, if not hundreds, of companies. It's probably manipulated by Ken Griffin. So I just don't see that AMC has anything to do with Finger. If you were in AMC, you had a chance to get out. I wasn't in it. But so I think AMC is it's a stock, and it's heavily shorted and heavily manipulated. But that's about all it has in common with Finger. But I would recommend, if you know AMC and you're more comfortable with it, you can take the money out of Finger and put it in AMC. I mean, anybody can do that. I'm not a diamond hands guy. You don't have to believe my bullshit. Oh, the same algorithm to Finger. It's possible. It's possible. Yeah. I think, Vin, man, that's possible. Because it seems like computerized trading. So I'll give you credit for that insight, Vin, man. It's bloody hot. It's bloody hot, mate. Once in AMC, I had no way out as I bought too high. Well, that's not true, Jack Wolf. That's what your brain was telling you. There's always actions you could take, but I know the feeling. I have that. It's been a brutal experience, Jack. Whether it's COSM, AMC, CLNV, MULN, forgetting the symbol, but CRTD. It's just been brutal. It's just been brutal. Anyone know what's going on? People saying MMTP is worth $62 on Twits. Well, AP, I don't know. I don't go on Twits, and I think the name is good enough to tell you why. But instead of using 4.5 billion, I'm going to use 5 billion. Why? Because they've discovered more oil shallow, and they've drilled more wells. But this is all back of the envelope. There's a lot of risk in it. A lot of risk in this calculation. I don't know why we keep obsessing on MMTLP unless you're going to Congress, writing your congressman, calling your congressman, calling your senator, calling your governor. There's very little we can do. The big boys have hired Wes Christian and others. Nextbridge is moving forward with its development plans. And there's just very little we can do. We can cry. She cried like a raven in the heat of the night. All right, so I'm using 5 billion barrels of oil. I'm ignoring the natural gas, ignoring the water. 5 billion. That's up from 4.5 billion. So I didn't really raise it very high. Somebody said that $12. I used to use $5. $12 per barrel is what acquisitions of this kind would go for, especially new field discovery, especially if you're using stock. That's $60 billion. There's 165 million shares. I think it's worth right now $363 per share. That's what the system owes you. But remember, they owe this to you in an undiluted basis. And don't you think that those smart guys that are fighting for you and themselves won't demand that? So I think this number is going to be over $1,000 a share by the time it's done. You're going to be frustrated while I'm waiting. I'm tired of waiting. I get that. But I'm waiting too, and I just don't see a way of changing that. That's my problem. I mean, it's frustrating, but I just don't know how to change it. I'm doing everything I can think to do. But you've got Congress people who are going to be very reluctant to understand this situation. You've got lying professors from Georgetown University. You got pompous ass TV personalities like Jim Cramer. You've got lying hedge funds, a lot of money. You've got FINRA that doesn't know what it's doing. You've got Gensler that doesn't care. I just don't see what is going to change the dynamics of MMTLP. We've got 7 billion hits because so many people are working hard. That could change it. You never know when the tipping point will come. But until then, this is a legal process. If some financial decision maker on Wall Street or compliance made a decision, you'd get your settlement. But right now it's a legal process. I don't know how to change that. And getting upset about it isn't going to do it. I've never been involved in a significant legal situation, that took less than 3.5 years. Ever. And remember, there was COVID, so there's a backlog. So, anyway, in the meantime, I think the real value of what you're entitled to is worth $363 a share. And I think what they'll settle for is north of $1,000 a share. And I think it's lucky that you have 5 guys fighting for you, because you'd probably settle for $6. Anyway, I'm going to move on to another subject. Yeah, you're right, Deacon Blues. Once the oil reserves become proven, as the neighbors to the north say, the value skyrockets. I agree with that. I think it's going to take time. But it's not the end of the world. Thank God that it's a real asset. Thank God that it's a real management team. Thank God that lawyers like Not Legal Advice, like Rosa and Little JR and others, and thank God for people like Anna, Queen of Trades, and a whole host, John Berta, McCabe. Thank God for all these people, and I'm leaving hundreds out. But thank God for it. But it's 6 months already. Geez. Yeah, I guess you don't understand. This is fraud on a massive scale. Your brokerage firms are part of it. The SEC is captured. Gary Gensler is complicit in my judgment. Thank God for the lawyers. Thank God for the legal system. It's the one area that Goldman Sachs has not been able to infiltrate. Anyway, we'll talk about something else. Well, Deacon, I wish I had bought the stock inexpensively. If I had done that, I'd feel a lot better, but I paid too much. But I really have written it off in the sense of my daily worries, because the fact is, one cannot do anything about it. There's nothing to do. Other than what, in my case, I feel like I'm doing almost all that I can. I know I can do better. GTII is great, and I think Finger's going to be great. I'm hoping Finger's great shortly. But, you know, it could take another month or two, or it could be next year. I mean, it's always something. Well, Finger went to 562. Wow. I see 544 right now. I don't see the volume. I don't see the volume. But if I could find the volume, I'm sure it's not much volume. Hey, Ken, all will be well because the assets are real. Think of it as a trust fund that becomes yours. Well, Ken, you're right. But the risk, there's two risks. One is that we collectively or individually make the wrong decision about our own asset, and we just say, all right, I'll get out, which is okay. I mean, that's okay. There's plenty of people that sold Facebook at $18 and it's now whatever it is. That's one risk. The other risk is that until there's two aspects of the fight. There's the shareholders who actually own Nextbridge, and then there's the financial obligation of Wall Street to us. That's what's being litigated right now. Social watch only. Are they creating this volatility as their last hope to shake up before buy? Yeah, I'd say that's true. I think it's also possibly trying to get stop limit orders executed. It might also be, as one of you guys pointed out, that they wanted to get under this squeeze number. It could be because of margin pressures. So that's one. They need volatility to get somebody to sell, and I don't think that's working. The second thing they want to do is have all this volatility so they can illegally cross positions between themselves, which the SEC doesn't care about. But when one person shorts it down that they don't own, another person can come in and short at a lower number, buying those shares, all coordinated and all illegally, letting that person, that criminal, take that money off the table. And that may be what's going on. Finally, what they want is when the stock, if the stock starts going up, you just go, whew, I got out at 6. I got my money off the table. Thank God. So you get out early. They want you to sell during the volatility. They want to hide their fraud that the SEC doesn't care about during the volatility. And when it starts going up, they want you just to relief sell so that you're out of there before it gets too expensive for them. Those are the 3 reasons they're doing it. And they don't know anything else to do. What else can they do? There's not enough volume here right now there's 5,000 for sale. That's spoofing. Gary Gensler, if you're watching, that is spoofing. That is illegal. That is not a real order. But you don't care. If you're listening, you're hoping to find out that somehow we are doing something wrong. Well, good on you, Gary. Good on you. 526 to 540 in the aftermarket. Skinny Whale, 1,000 shares is the volume. That's nothing. I don't see it on my. Maybe I have to go to NASDAQ. Let me go over there. So did I tell you Justin Verlander went to the Houston Astros? Did it change your life? I know it changed my life. All right, 535. I don't know, Skinny Whale. I don't see the 1,000 shares. Maybe I have to hit aftermarket or something. Anyway, I don't see how to know the volume. 10,800. All right. I'm keeping my MMTLP at my broker, which, as we went through, might be the right decision. I'm trying to get part of mine out, but I may have no choice. 60 days for approval. If only the regulators can see the share counts. Well, Eric, that's true. But they're going to argue, well, the other side's going to say, well, that's not right. That's just what's showing there. You're not looking at what's in the dark pools, what's offshore. You know, they're look, my dad used to say, lawyers are liars. Liars are lawyers. Liars and lawyers. I'm not sure it's fair. I think a lot of lawyers are quite honest and hardworking. But this subset of lawyers that are involved in this are all liars. Well, I wish Sleepy Joe would take a long nap. And that's not I mean, during the afternoons. I'm not talking about anything more. Did you see the post from Yuri? Thank you very much. That's so clever. I'm looking for Amanda Hug and Kiss. And if I didn't transfer my shares and just let it in, you could be right. there's no perfect answer on what to do because government launches investigation into $9 trillion Hunter Biden. You know, the thing is, oh, over Chinese investments. Let me look for that. That could be why the stock is down. You know, the thing is, what I really mean. Those are the... Okay, so let's see what this FUD is. The House Select Committee on Strategic Competition between the United States and the Chinese Communist Party announced an investigation into investment firm BlackRock on Tuesday. And of course, this means Finger is complicit, right? In a Monday letter from committee chairman Mike Gallagher, Republican, Wisconsin, and ranking member, Uptown top ranking member Raja Krishnamurthy, the names are always so long, Democrat, Illinois, to BlackRock chairman and CEO Larry Fink, the representative alleged that the investment firm is using its unwitting American customers' finances to fund Chinese companies that, quote, develop and build weapons for the People's Liberation Army, just like Finger does. That's the problem. Finger's in the arms business, and they're helping to develop weapons for the PLA. You're on to something. Which is the PRC's military, and advance the Chinese Communist Party's stated mission of technological supremacy. Gotcha. We better get out of Finger. Finger's in the arms business. It's unconscionable for any U.S. company to profit from investments that fuel the military advancement of America's foremost foreign adversary and facilitate human rights abuses, the letter read. I think you got it sussed. You got it sussed. 3:01 p.m. Time to sell Finger. The House is going after BlackRock. I think you have it sussed. And my dad thought we looked ridiculous. Very funny, Kevin. Only profession worse than lawyers is used car salesmen? I'm not sure that's true. There's a lot of great lawyers out there, and they work hard. Anyone know if we made it to the Golden Cross? I'll look. I don't know if we did, but that's a good point. Denver, 88 degrees. Lordy, lordy, lordy. Let me look to see if we got that. Look, the charges are against Larry Fink. Larry Fink doesn't own any Finger. And as much as people want to make China our adversary, it's not anything new. China and the United States are linked together, and I think we should be friends, and I think we should. If there's one country in the world that understands capitalism and hard work, it's China. It's a UK sense of humor. Well, when you say UK and sense of humor, what is the choice but to laugh? I read somewhere that the entire Chinese market was sold off today, and that's what affected today's action. That's possible. I'm not an American company. I'm a little old lady and not selling. Well, little old lady. I think Finger has the potential to be the one that changes the narrative for MMTLP, for GTII, for all this suite of stocks. And it shows, well, capitalism is bad. It's funny. If you want capitalism, then let the banks fail when they screw up. When the banks sell mortgages that don't exist in 2008, let them fail. But no, we use socialism. We socialize the losses, and we let this elite group like Larry Fink and Gary Gensler and all of their buddies get rich. That's not capitalism. Das Straswit Zakapitalism. Das Straswit Zakapitalism. I didn't get that quite right, but that's all right. So the Brewers have acquired Andrew Chaffin. I don't know if that's good. Bo Bichette suffered a knee injury. The Mets are paying a combined $35 million of Verlander's salary. Top outfield prospect Drew Gilbert is going to the Mets in trade. Phillies acquire Michael Lorenzen. The Mariners acquire Edward Bizardo. The Nationals step up and they claim Robert Garcia. Blue Jays acquire Paul DeJong. And that's about it. There was some sad news today, by the way, in the DC Tennis Open. I don't know if it's in the news. Yeah, it's here. It's very troubling. Shocking moment. Tennis star Yibing Wu collapses at City Open in DC. This is a young man, 23 years old. He collapsed after suffering breathing problems. So if you think of it, say a prayer for him. And here we have Francis Tiafoe, who is great. Chris Eubanks, who is a breath of fresh air, help black tennis stars rise. It's fair enough. I mean, both of them are supremely talented. And the more role models are out there for younger men and women, the more breaking down the barriers will happen. But I think they're both great tennis players. I'm not going to repeat that, Ted Williams. It could have been worse. That's right. Sam Bankman Fraud, a close friend of Maxine Waters. I get so tight when MMTLP is the topic. I don't know what that implication means. I get bored with it because it's highly repetitive. There is nothing to do. I own MMTLP. I have a lot of money tied up in MMTLP. And this fraud that's in the market is everywhere in the market. So I just don't know what. I'll try to be more patient and try to. But I'm not gonna lie to you. I don't think there's a solution coming next week, next month, this year, unless there's some integrity in the regulatory system which requires someone to step up to do it, or the groundswell of public opinion shames Congress into doing something, or if the legal process uncovers a smoking gun that makes the other side realize their ass is grass. But until then, plan on months, if not years. EV Solution. I'm losing money on Finger and GTII. Good, EV. Have you sold? I would say EVI Solutions, one strategy you could do is sell, take your losses, and go to a different stock position that you know and understand better. But I don't know what to tell you. You know, I was thinking about it today. I don't think there's so many of you that aren't investors. How does Warren Buffett make money in Washington Post? Well, when he did. I mean, now it's worthless. Or in Geico. Or in, I'm trying to think of some of Coca-Cola. He didn't buy it and think, oh, the next day it's going to go to the moon. He did his analysis. He bought it. And if the stock went down, maybe he bought more. But he just said, you know, at some point, the fundamentals are going to catch up with what I think the value is. And that's how he became wealthy. But you all and me were like, oh, I'm losing money. Oh, I shouldn't. That kind of approach, you shouldn't even be investing, because you become the victim that these guys are looking for. If you don't have confidence in your due diligence and your only thing is, I'm going to buy at the exact right time that the stock is only going to go up, you shouldn't be investing. You shouldn't. It's impossible to pick the bottom. It's impossible to invest in a story without assuming the risk that it's going to go lower first before it goes up. And if you can't live with that, CDs are a good place to be. Just don't put it in any banks like, I can't remember the last three that failed. Treasuries. That's the best place to go put your money if you want supposedly riskless investing. You can get 5% in a short-term United States Treasury note, and you take the risk of dollar decline and inflation, but you don't have to see the price go down. That's probably the best place for you, EVI. So I can't give you financial advice, but I would take the opportunity to sell GTII, sell Finger, establish your tax losses, go to the IRS website, not IRS, the Treasury, United States Treasury, under T-bills, and establish an account and buy T-bills, roll T-bills. That way you won't lose money. And stay out of the stock market. Your expectations are all wacko, so just stay out. If you're going to buy a stock and stand like a statue, like Ham calls it, and never do anything, or you're going to expect that the moment you buy it, it's the bottom and then it's going to start going up, stock market ain't for you. So she told you. I heard she told you she loves you. But I must warn you that sometimes she lies. That guy's 23 years old and he's collapsing. Have you had any more thought about you starting an honest crypto exchange? Cloud Zero, I wasn't really talking crypto, but I'm open to that. I just don't know that I add any value with crypto. Where I add value is I remember and I know what an honest Wall Street was, and I know I could run a honest exchange, an honest brokerage firm, an honest custodialship. But if it's on crypto, that'd be great. Yeah, I'd be open to that. Can I explain? So she told you she found heaven in your eyes. Well, I think it's only fair to warn you. Sometimes she lies. But it's your heart, so I can't tell you what to do. But she's not for you. She's not for you. She just looks for greener pastures now and then. And when she grows tired, she knows Old Faithful will just take her back again. So just leave her here. I'm used to feeling blue. She's not for you. She's not for you. Let me go answer this question. Oh my gosh, Rosie Gray Guys, 18-year-old Colombian soccer player. 18 years old. I mean, I'm envious of these guys. But I'm not, I mean, in a good way. I'm not jealous so they shouldn't have their full lives ahead of them. 18 years old? Something's up. Ryan, when a sale happens on Wall Street in the United States, it has to enter into an account somewhere as a prime broker, broker-dealer. Even these criminals from Germany flooding the market with trillions of shares that Gary Gensler doesn't care about, that open position that failed to deliver is sitting somewhere. And it means that why don't you just take the government out of it? Take regulators out of it. And pretend that you're sitting in Las Vegas and somebody from somewhere, let's say from Chicago, is selling, I don't know what, selling bets on LSU, and they do it to the tune of $100 billion. And then LSU wins, and they don't pay. What do you think's going to happen? The bad guys are going to go kill that guy, or he's going to have to pay. This mentality is also Wall Street, but it comes down to money. So your argument is, I think you're just being truncated in your thought process. Your argument is, okay, they're going to sell 100 million shares of Finger that don't exist. Why does that cost them anything? So let's go through your logic. They are selling 160 million shares of Finger, which does not exist. So your logic is it doesn't cost them anything. All right, let's just call it 150 million because my arithmetic skills are so bad. And let's just say the squeeze price is $5 for the same reason. That means that $720 million was paid for those shares. $720 million was paid for those shares across exchanges in the United States, broker-dealers, prime brokers, and in your account. $720 million. Your argument is that cash went to buy shares that don't exist. Why does that cost the short sellers anything? Okay. So you're saying people put up $700 million to get an IOU. Why is the short taking any risk at all? That's your point. Okay. Well, in between, there's a broker-dealer and a prime broker. But there's many broker-dealers that assured us when we bought Finger that we bought real shares, that assured us that we had settlement, just like with MMTLP. In the meantime, What behind the scenes, what shows up in our accounts is a fail to deliver. Now, it's possible that the bad guys just keep moving those around, but that means fails to deliver are showing up all over Wall Street. Okay, so your argument is the brokers are just floating to the criminals. They're just floating to the criminals. You can do that to us. We'll take all the risk. When our clients sue us because there's no settlement, we'll assume all the risk. Or we'll take the risk because we know across the board stocks always go down when you keep selling, so we know there's no risk. We'll take the fat tail risk on our shoulders. We're not going to require you, short sellers, to take any risk at all. Just keep up selling, keep bringing it on, keep selling more fake shares. We'll take cash from our clients in legal trades, securities laws trades that puts our entire firm at risk. But just bring it on, criminals. We'll do it. We make just an infinitesimal commission, but we'll keep doing it. Keep doing it. We're not going to charge you anything. That's your logic. Makes no sense, of course. But on the other side of that 720 million are fails to deliver. And they come in basically two forms. Tickets marked short or tickets marked long that never deliver. The prime brokers and even these machines that Gensler doesn't care about take on an obligation to deliver those shares. Your broker-dealer, contrary to what I just implied you're thinking, your broker-dealer isn't going to take that risk. Or not knowingly, unless they're complicit, and there might be some that are. But they don't intend to take that risk. They're just assuming that you're going to deliver. And they do know that it's never bitten them in the ass before. So what does the prime broker require? Cash. And you can prove this to yourself. Why in all of these contracts is there a default provision that if you get delisted, you're in default on the toxic note? So that the company does a reverse split. But, I guess it's too complicated to keep it all in your head. But if there's 150 million shares short, and I will admit to you that there may be some sort of sweetheart deals that I don't understand, but I'm going to just go with the plain vanilla. They're going to require probably, just to keep the arithmetic, they're going to require $10 a share maintenance requirement at all those prime brokers against $150 million short. And you're saying, well, that doesn't cost the shorts anything. That's just money. They got the monthly cost of carrying the account. They've got the interest costs. It's very expensive to carry this. But let's call it $10 a share. Why? It's probably less. It might be less than that. Why? Because it's easy arithmetic. And I'm admitting to you, so you're going to get frustrated, that, it's not going to be this much. They're doing it. It's going to be some portion of this. big portion of this, or they're tying other accounts to it. They're getting guarantees. I'm telling you, go back to my Las Vegas example. When money's on the line, they're going to hold you accountable. It's not free. But anyway, that's $1.5 billion required to be in the prime broker's accounts to carry this with a $10 maintenance requirement. You're going to argue, well, it's not. It's, what is it then? It's going to be more than $5 because the stock's trading at 540, and it's been as high as $7. So it's at least $7. I would argue 10's probably it. So they need $1.5 billion in cash in the prime broker's account or the equivalent, or they're going to buy them in. Now, how does a reverse split work? And this is why Gary Gensler is a functional idiot. He's stupid. So let's say finger motion defaults and they drive this stock price downward, and it defaults, it gets delisted. So they force the stock to do a 1 for 100 share stock split. These criminals, they do it over every stock. So you're going to go, well, this isn't happening here. Could you just let me do the thought experiment? So 1 for 100. So 150 million shares becomes 1.5 million. And it still requires, let's say, the same $10. So by doing a reverse split, they changed the number of shares from 150 million to 1.5 million. The same $10, what had been $1.5 billion required becomes 15 million. So the criminals over in Germany can take almost $1.5 billion out of the U.S. accounts without paying taxes. Gary Gensler doesn't care, because remember, the short sellers are saving you from the criminality of CEOs, except in the case of COSM. So now you only need 15 million. That's why reverse splits happen. So anyway, I forget who asked the question. Why do you think they go through that exercise of reverse splits, if not to take this money that's sitting in these accounts out? So no, the short sellers do not sell stock for free. Just like the gangsters are not going to let you lay bets against LSU for free. There's just, I mean, intellectually, you got to stop yourself from this I don't know, dire thinking. You're really saying that you believe Wall Street would allow criminals to place billions or $100 of billion bets, and it's free? No requirement. We don't have to protect. Jeffries has a $7 billion market cap, or it did. And they're going to say, hey, lay it on. We'll take $1 trillion worth of risk. You don't have to have any monies in the accounts. You don't have to pay us anything per month. You don't have to pay us any interest. Just lay it on. And we'll do it every month, in and out. Just lay it on. It doesn't make any sense. Now, where Jeffries is probably helping is they're helping in those reverse splits. They're helping sluice the selling. And the system sets it up so that there is no over-the-counter market really anymore. There's no research. There's no market makers. There's no trading desks. Anything under $5, there's no retail buying. Anything under 300 million or so, there's no institutional buying. So they set it up so the shorts are always going to win because Gary Gensler goes along with it. He's a stooge for the thieves. That's why he gets all uncomfortable and he's distracting and he's talking about cryptocurrency and grabbing his tie. He's a stooge. Since 4 p.m., 40,000 shares of Finger have traded. Let me see. And it's 5:35. Well, let them have their reindeer games. It won't last. It won't last. I would feel better. I don't want to lie. I'd feel better if the stock were up, but maybe the stock goes up, in September or October. But I don't see. It's 1.26 million shares. I remember coming on and predicting to you that it was below 1 million when I came on. So I don't think it's more than 250,000 shares have traded since we started talking, or I did. And they've gotten it down 60 cents. Bravo. Bravera. That's great. But somebody's been buying for the last 5 or 6 weeks millions of shares. So they got it down a little bit on 200,000 counterfeit, fraudulent, manipulated, communicating with each other, spoofing, crossing, all illegal. But who knew? In Gary Gensler's approach to enforcing almost 100-year-old securities laws, in a decade it'll be 100 years. This is okay. It helps Gary Gensler's firm. He's an alum of Goldman Sachs. It helps them make money. I don't know if dark pools are the issue. I don't. I think they are maybe an AMC. I can't follow your logic today with dark pools. Are the dark pools hiding the buying so that the selling goes on the lit exchanges and any buying goes through Frankfurt, Germany? Maybe. I'm sure you're smarter than I am on that. I just don't know. You might understand that better. Well, I would change Rainier. I would change my brokerage from BNP Paribas. But yeah, they've gotten caught out. But Rainier, take that, ignore yourself and ignore me, ignore us, and put that on a macro level. So in the micro caps, BNP Paribas is probably prime broker for a lot of the criminals that just sell stock that doesn't exist. What is the risk to the criminals? Regulators. Okay, Goldman Sachs captured Gary Gensler, so we got that solved. Goldman Sachs funded, and I mean all of them, Goldman Sachs funded corrupt professors at Georgetown. We got that solved. Jim Cramer made his fortune at Goldman Sachs, and now he's saying it's caveat emptor. We got that solved. What's one of the risks? Well, let's get rid of physical shares. Let's make everything electronic. Okay, they accomplished that. We got that risk solved. Let's get rid of fractional quotes and make it decimals. It's harder for people to understand. There's massive profits when stocks are under 10 cents, under a penny. But let's go to decimalization. Let's get rid of trading desks, completely get rid of trading desks. Let's get rid of research. Let's get rid of institutional buying. And then let's, as an SEC captured by Goldman Sachs, let's show complete indifference to the over-the-counter markets. And now, Rainier, add to it, BNP won't let you even put in an unsolicited order to buy stock in the microcaps. So the criminals, they hire someone like Philip Vallier to go get a contract with a toxic note at Created, and then they just start selling and selling and selling. There's no research, there's no institutional buying, and your own brokerage firm won't allow unsolicited retail buying. Everything is like shooting fish in a barrel. Everything. And so the denominator on these small caps becomes unknowable. It doesn't matter how good the story is. And COSM had a shitty story. But MULN seems like a little bit better. MMAT has a great story. But the number of shares outstanding and the price, and they need money, CELU or whatever it was, they're going to need money to develop. CVM, they've got a great drug, but it needs money to develop. So the criminals know there's no investment banking in the over-the-counter. There's no retail brokers recommending the stocks. And like you just found out, Rainier, no unsolicited orders accepted either. So the criminals just have to keep selling it off and off and off. And there's no buying. Goldman Sachs and their henchmen got rid of any buying in the microcaps. It's a perfect crime. I would submit to you the only thing they didn't expect was Ham, and was the focused attention on particularly two stocks. In each case, one trap short. And I think we're about to see. I don't think there's going to be a knight in shining armor. I believe GTII was about to squeeze in November. You can say I'm wrong, but Fidelity was paying 1,000% to borrow shares. Wells Fargo was slow walking. Took the buy order away. Other brokerage firms were slow walking the exercise of the special dividend warrants, which were held at Liberty Stock Transfer. But into the field of play came 2 or 3 geniuses who know what they're doing. They say we know what we're talking about. We know our advice is good. So they knew what they were doing. And they stopped it. Well, that's all right. It's built up a larger position. I don't think that's going to happen this time with Finger. I don't think somebody's going to get us to go invest in COSM this time with Finger. I don't think anyone would listen to that suggestion. I don't think. I might be proven wrong. It's going to be a lot of money, though. So there could be any kind of gamemanship. For all I know, this investigation into BlackRock might be paid for by BlackRock to get people panicking out of Chinese stocks. I just don't think BlackRock is focusing on Finger. And you guys think that when a stock, like let's say Finger went to $50, $100, and it costs the system a lot of money. Well, it's just moving that money from some part of the system into your accounts. And you're all sheep. I'm a sheep. They're going to get it back. They're going to talk you to go into AMC when it runs to 20, or they're going to talk you into getting into the next thing. They'll make it back. So it's just moving deck chairs around. That's all it is. So the system isn't going to go defunct because Finger squeezes. Anyway. Hey, Linda Tully. Rainier, I think that's right. Blockchain trading with immediate settlement, or Rainier, just blockchain trading with enforcement of settlement. It doesn't have to be immediate. You could get an exemption for a day, or maybe there's a scenario where it needs, maybe it's the settlement of an estate and a lawyer needs to sign off and you need 2 weeks. But because it's blockchain, there's no defrauding. It'll have to happen. So you're right. You're absolutely right. We need blockchain. What? Another 30 days Alpine? Well, Tony, I know that's shitty. I don't want to defend anybody, but my guess is the judge involved here in D.C., remember it was Florida, the judge somehow believes that the argument that FINRA has no constitutional right to regulate or to insist on mandatory membership has some merit. I don't know. Does it? So she's giving the delays, I think. And again, I don't know why people expect the legal process to be quick. It's not. It just isn't. But Alpine is running out its string of objections, its string of appeals, its string of Hail Marys. And the judge is going along with it. I'm not a lawyer. My guess is she's doing it so that her final decision, when she makes it, is ironclad, and Alpine has no grounds to file a complaint and break the whole ball of wax, put it before the Supreme Court, and everything has to start at zero again. That's my guess. But you have to remember that in the body of the FINRA action from last March, not this recent March, to expel Alpine, for fraud, for securities violations, and apparently for problems with a large short position in GTII. Their lawyers went to work in the courts in Florida. Florida, it moved up here. But there was no objection and no feasible grounds to object to FINRA's cease and desist order put in place March of 2022 to not continue fraudulent behavior, breaking securities laws, and in essence, acting like a criminal. Well, guess what? Alpine, John Hurry, have violated that cease and desist order 36,000 times. 36,000 times. Do you think by getting another month's delay that they are going to get off or get away from 36,000 violations of a cease and desist order? I just don't know what to tell people. It's not surprising that John Hurry's attorneys are doing everything they can do, every bullshit argument out there. And it's not surprising to me anyway that the judge is going to give them as much rope as they need to see their legal argument through. Why? Because in the United States, people are innocent until proven guilty. They have the right to pursue and put forth any legal argument their attorneys can think of. So it's not a shock. I mean, why is it a bloody surprise? It's 30 more days. Maybe they're going to get another 90 days. Maybe it could take another year. I don't think so, but it's going to end when finally every single avenue turns into a dead-end alley. They're going to have to turn and face the guy with the brass knuckles that says, hey, the big man wants to see you. You owe us money. And time's up. But I try to think it through why when Alpine's granted 30 more days, that suddenly it runs through anyone's head that it means Alpine is winning or Alpine is going to get away with something. I don't understand it. Alpine is finished, although maybe it's not clear to everybody yet. Alpine is toast. John Hurry probably is never going to be able to run a financial firm again. He's never going to be able to cat around with a young girlfriend, or I've heard maybe it's his daughter. He's not going to be able to run hundreds of millions of dollars and buy houses everywhere and fly to the Caymans unless the government lets him off like they did Sam Bankman-Fried. Maybe he will. But I doubt it. I think life as he knows it is over. But until then, he is deluding himself, paying for the best legal defense he can with stolen property, stolen funds, and he's seeing up the chain. I mean, how long did John Gotti's dance with the legal authorities go? How long did I can't think of other examples. The tobacco companies, the asbestos companies. They're gonna see it out. I don't know why it's surprising. What is 30 days going to do? What if they didn't get 30 days? What was that going to do? GTII will run, I think, after Finger, at the same time. Once Finger starts going, if it does, GTII will run. And the price of the stock will cause the buy-ins. Screw the courts, screw Alpine, screw John Hurry if his wife wants to. The price of the stock will catch out the system. That's our end run. That's our goal. Dedif, he's already been banned from the industry since 2017. Well, that might explain why everything's in his wife's name and in these P.P. Le Pew trusts. It is a perfect crime, Richard Rizzard, as long as there's no enforcement. But it doesn't, the question I was answering before, can they do it for free? It's a perfect crime as long as they can drive the stocks to ever downward. They can seller box the stocks, get them to reverse split, take money out without paying. That's a perfect crime. But there's always a fat tail. There's always a black swan. There's always that 2%, that 5% chance. And that's what they're facing now. Finger, when I first was told the story of Finger, what I remember is there was 2 to 4 million shares in the float. And I remember a short of only about 4 million shares. And it grew to 6 million shares. And I was told it was one of the best stories out there. Now, the short position is maybe 160 million. There's people out there that say, oh, that's impossible. That doesn't count the crossing and their dark pools and their borrowing share. That's all okay. Well, Ham's been following it every single day, and he got me looking at it too. And I don't see the covering. But there's not transparency. Until there is transparency, we just have to give it our best efforts to see it. Well, now you've got a company with 160 million shares short and still a low float. 25 million maybe? I think it's less. Are the directors of LLCs liable personally if guilty of fraud? Fraud is tricky. Not legal advice told me on these questions a couple of cases where fraud doesn't do anything. But with an LLC in the United States, as long as the managing member honors the tight walls of the LLC and does nothing to pierce the protection the LLC provides, the only assets are what is in the LLC. But, and not legal advice is who you should ask or an attorney. If they start moving money from their personal account or doing trades in personal accounts or in other accounts, a smart attorney is going to challenge that. And she's going to say, hey, wait a minute. Your client did not honor the sanctity of the LLC. Your client moved money in and out of the LLC, breaking the seal. So we have a right to go after the other assets that were intermingled and commingled with that LLC. That's one. I also believe in the United States, and I'm not an attorney, that fraud committed by the managing member of an LLC is grounds for legal action and criminal action against that member, financially and criminally and civilly. That's my understanding, but I'm not an attorney. GNS today received a warning letter from NYSE regarding manner of disclosures from March via Twitter. Violated section. Unbelievable. I mean, that guy's a bit of a drum major. Hey, there goes the parade. Let me get out in front. But that's a typical case that where the NYSE, the SEC, it's, at the risk, Rainier, of saying something politically incorrect. But Hillary Clinton, who worked for Barry Goldwater in her young idealistic years, her teens and 20s, she worked for Barry Goldwater. While Bernie Sanders got arrested fighting for civil rights. But back then, on TV and in Time magazine and Newsweek magazine and Look and Life were images of the horror, the absolute horror of what was going on, particularly in the South, although the North was not exempt from its own wrongdoings. But in the South, Bull Connor, the attack on the bridge that cost the congressman, I'm forgetting his name right now, he got his head smashed in. The murder, the assassination of Martin Luther King, the assassination of Malcolm X, the race riots, the hoses, the dogs, the lynchings, just the absolute horror of racism in the United States. Well, now Hillary Clinton, after I think Barack Obama's election caused massive strides, but other things too. In my opinion, most of those racists, those evil white men, I don't know how white women get an exemption, but I'll go with that. Just, it was all white men. No, not the women. They're dead. They're gone. And just because people were born and grew up in Virginia, North Carolina, Georgia, Texas, doesn't mean they all grew up racist in our generation and in your generation. So Hillary Clinton came along after one of the most brilliant breakthroughs in political history. She came along and called a man who the evidence shows Jesse Jackson gave this man an award for helping African Americans. And I hate all the terminology. I hate it all. But Hillary Clinton came along embarrassed and blamed it both on the Russians, but she also blamed it on white supremacy and racism. And my point is, would you get to your point? Yes, I will. My point is that the Democratic Party is in many ways fighting a racism that used to exist. I'm not saying everything is perfect now, but they're alleging things that used to exist in horrible quantities. Well, that's what the SEC and NYSC are doing, and others are doing now. Back in the 60s, particularly in the 70s, there was a lot of over-the-counter company fraud. There was pumping, hyping, come grow with us, Jersey Securities. There was a company, OTC Net. There's a lot of stuff. So the SEC is set up, and obviously NYSE, set up to go after CEOs for pumping their stock and taking advantage of investors. Well, my argument is that's 30, 40-year-old behavior. It doesn't happen anymore. Maybe there's a little bit of it. But what happens now is an institutionalized Goldman Sachs bought and paid for overseas theft of our markets that goes on such a grand scale, not at the CEO level, not at the company level, at the criminal theft, financing, poser level. And NYSE has no interest in looking at it. Gensler has no interest. But let the stock go up. And all of a sudden, oh my gosh, the CEO's doing something wrong. Because the systems and all these intellectuals who run it, they remember the lessons they studied from 30 or 40 years ago. Hillary Clinton remembers the racism which I was a kid, but I remember that the Republicans were on the wrong side of the race issue. But she supported Republicans when she was young. But now, the only reference in her feeble brain is what happened in the 60s. Where, I'm trying to remember, Mick Jagger just turned 80 years old. He's from the 60s. I think Paul McCartney's 78 or 79. From the 60s. I'm not saying things are 100% better, but things have evolved. But in the regulatory environment, they're still set on go after CEOs. They're not set on go after the duplicitous, lying son of a bitch financiers who strip the markets of money with the help of their attorneys and with the help of non-existent market makers, crappy market makers, and the help of hedge funds like Citadel and firms like Goldman Sachs Prime Broker. I can't even, my eyesight, Michelle Gilster, I don't know what's gone wrong with it. All right, so fingers 562, up 27 cents. Thank you for pointing that out. Fitch downgrades the United States from AAA to AA plus. Well, unfortunately, Chris Daniel, United States, I'm not sure Trump was going to succeed with his strategy, but we borrow a lot of money. China borrows a lot of money. But China has its own unique problems that we don't have, by the way. But China has built high-speed rail, modern airports, cities, which some people ridicule them for. But if climate change is real, and I believe it is, one can make an argument that we need to live in cities. So anyway, they've built power plants. Now, unfortunately, I think the single biggest thing humankind can do about climate change, other than reduction of our population, is getting rid of coal plants. Leave the coal in the ground. But anyway, they're doing coal plants. They're building out, while we're going into endless squandering of our military resources, they're building out, I think it's called the Ring Road or the Ring something. But they're building out their economic and resource access worldwide. And we're not. We really only have one choice. Two. One is war. The other is to inflate. And that's what'll happen. And it's happening. I went to the coffee shop this morning. The guy looked at me like I had 3 heads. But I ordered my coffee. He was very nice. And I looked at his allocation of comestibles, and they were all this size. The price was $4.35 each, but if you wanted a blueberry muffin, it was about this size. If you wanted, I don't know, you can fill in the blank. If you wanted a piece of lemon pound cake, it was this size. Everything was tiny. And I said, well, so that's inflation now. He looked at me like, what the hell are you talking about, boy? Get out of here, boy. Pay up and get out of here. But I said that's where inflation is showing up right now. And that's in the United States, the cost of our debt, the interest payments on our debt, as I understand it, has gone to over $1 trillion. The interest payments. Bigger than our defense spending. And how long does it go before countries around the world don't want to lend us money so that we can bomb them, so that we can call them Muslim, so we can call them terrorists, so we can kill little children with our depleted uranium bombs, so that we can drop bombs from 30,000 feet that take the leg off of someone's sister, someone's daughter. How long can we do that before they stop lending us money? How long can we do that before China stops buying our bonds? The last buyer of our bonds is the Fed. And Japan, you just need to look to Tokyo. They've been doing this a long time. That means years of very little growth. It's not a pretty picture for us. Otherwise, we just let it all come tumbling down and we start over again. But I think what's coming is war and inflation. And it'll be stagflation. It's not a nice picture. And Trump's strategy was, let's bring our jobs back, let's bring industry back. I'm not sure that his sepia tone memory of the 50s and 60s, 70s even, America, where we had all the oil in the world and we were the one economic power. I'm not sure we can return to that. But I do think that if we could get our economic engine going, and we have strong financial markets and wise allocation of our resources, 30 trillion in debt can easily be maintained by an economy that should grow to $30 trillion. But we're at a tipping point and we have decisions to make. And we've promoted Victoria Nuland to the second highest. She's right behind Tony Blinken. And she's a neocon. Her husband is Robert Kagan, a supporter of the New American Century, which you can look it up. Wes Clark named the 7 countries we were going to invade before it happened. And it did happen, all 7. Well, now they've turned their sights on the Soviet Union, Russia. All I want for you guys, we can't change the world. We can try to. But I want for you guys is to have a financial hit to the positive, a positive financial hit that can make you financially independent or financially secure, at least in one aspect of your life. And then you can survive the vicissitude ahead. What was your memory? I don't know, Mike Dugan. If my memory's wrong, Johnson was a pure racist, except it's funny, Scott. I don't know if you've read the Robert Caro books on Johnson. I've read them all. And I'm afraid he's going to die before he finishes it. Johnson was a racist, just like Joe Biden and just like Hillary were. And I'm basing that on information that's in the public domain. But Johnson knew how to use power. And Johnson, I'm trying to remember the gentleman's name, the bald guy, who never married. And there's buildings named after him, and I can't remember his name as I'm talking to you. But the South was four square against the Civil Rights Bill. And Johnson went to that man, took him to dinner. I'm forgetting his name right now. Kissed him on the top of his bald head and said, just remember that you will go down in history if you pass this legislation. Anyway, Johnson got the legislation passed. And he gave a speech, which I commend to you, where he said, in the words of the old Negro spiritual, weird language, we shall overcome. And Johnson got that done. So it's odd who God chooses to put forward God's mission on earth. Equality, fairness, righting wrongs, giving young, as Martin Luther King said, you know, I have a dream someday that black children and white children can live in peace. You know, Johnson got it done. So, yes, he used that horrible word over and over and over again, but it's in rap songs too. I hate that word. But I think Johnson, you know, he grew up in the hardscrabble Texas, I guess uplands you'd call it. No water, no electricity. His father was a drunk, and his father embarrassed him. But Johnson knew what it meant to grow up in houses with dirt floor, no electricity, no plumbing, and he got those laws passed too. So, hill country, that's it. And the Fed, well, I don't know. 1.3 trillion. Whew. Rizard, I didn't know it was that high. President Trump says he expects to be indicted by special counsel Jack Smith. You know, that means I already forgot that Joe and I know it wasn't Joe, was it? It was that's what he's getting indicted for, Trump? Because Eric Trump brought him in, called the Chinese, and they got paid $10 or $15 million. Coal's not the same as in the 60s. That's probably. BRICS approaches fast. I'm not sure the BRICS can work. I'm not sure there's going to be a correction in September or October because everybody's calling for it. I've even called for it. But so you gotta be contrary. Yes, LBJ was a odd man. I personally think Kennedy would have taken us out of Vietnam. Climate hoax. Sun drives climate. Yeah. Oh, the bricks. That's what it was. Yeah, the sun drives climate. Can't argue with that. But, if you want to rely on the eons of the sun doing it, then we get wiped off the face of the earth. And I think it's fair for human beings to try to manage the experiments we're doing. I've told you before, the book, The Storms of My Grandchildren. There's 4 things to do. Stop destroying the forests, and in fact maybe reforest. Let the planet create oxygen. 2, all the small things like hanging your clothes on a line instead of using a dryer, solar panels, windmills, geothermal, all the very small things add up to a partial solution. The third thing is leaving the coal in the ground. The fourth thing is the idea of 4th generation nuclear power plants. Call me skeptical. But anyway, that's the 4th thing. But then he points out the one thing he left out of his solution was oil and natural gas, because we're going to burn all that. We're going to burn it. And if you add to the complexity of climate change, one of the most frightening things that I can imagine is that 50% of the world's oxygen comes from plankton and the small animals, I guess you call them, that populate our oceans. Fukushima is frightening as all get out because radiation kills plankton. But anyway, I can't fix all these things. I have to leave it. I have to leave it to God. Now we're at 5:32. Yeah, we need rainforest. I'd like to do an investment club, Michelle. I'd like to... Yeah, Jay, that's probably right. I'm not going to read it out. Well, let's see what other news is breaking. We've got 8 minutes. 8 minutes to the important news. Orioles are going to acquire Jack Flaherty from the Cardinals. Diamondbacks to acquire Tommy Pham. Astros acquire Justin Verlander. Rangers to acquire Austin Hedges. Brandon Donovan to undergo season-ending surgery. White Sox to acquire Luis Patino from Rays. Padres acquire Rich Hill. Eduardo Rodriguez vetoed trade to the Dodgers. The Marlins acquire Jake Burger. The Brewers and the Diamondbacks swap Andrew Chaffin for Peter Strzelecki. Oh, things are getting hot and serious. Donald Trump is indicted for the 3rd time in January 6th case. Trump allies are charged in Michigan for tampering with voting machines when they looked for evidence of fraud. Miami has seen its first population drop in a decade. So Trump is indicted. Well, sometimes, Somler, I didn't say there's very little. I didn't say that. I said that it's different. It's not the same racism, and I agree with you. I see racism, and it's horrible. It's horrible. But I also sometimes sommelier. I would also ask you to consider that there's also poverty that's blinding poverty to some white people too, like in Appalachia. So it's economic, but I agree with you. I don't if I chose my words badly, I didn't think I did, but if I did, I'll take them all back because I do think racism exists. It's different now than it was. I mean, I listened to one of my heroes when I was young was Reggie Jackson. I listened to his interviews back when he was a young, magnificent superstar baseball player. He still faced racism as he went around the country. But it's, I don't know. I still stand by that there's been a lot of progress and it's a lot different now. But I did not say there's very little racism. And I certainly did not say that racism doesn't exist. But if I should correct myself. I didn't think I said that. I'm ill-informed on the subject. I don't know, sometimes sommelier. It's possible. Certainly possible I'm ill-informed on the subject. I do know it's different, though. I do know it's a lot different. It's worse now. Well, I do think, unfortunately, that we've been divided into our various groups more. And I don't know, maybe I'm just too hopeful, but I live in a city where I think I've seen the changes and all for the better. But I'm willing to admit sommelier that I may not be well informed, and I may that I may be wrong on it. So I can admit that. To say Republicans were on the wrong side is very short-sighted. So I'm wrong on both ways. Well, I remember back then, the image was, Democrats were on the side of civil rights and Republicans were against it. But it's probably more complicated than that. Well, Joel, I think slavery slavery's all about energy, and it's horrible. But a lot of the need for slavery went away when oil fueled machines Well, we're building back better, haven't you noticed, Dominic? I I before you go claiming that there's very little. Yeah, I already read that. Yeah, Big Al, finger went to 618. It's telling you where it wants to go, but everyone's latching on to this China story. Um, Let me just I'm going to check if there's. And by the way, there should be zero racism, zero. There should be no tolerance of any racism at all. So, finger up 19. January 6th, grand jury indicts Trump on 4 counts. Dominic Pantaleo, you're not a mobster? I just assumed. I assumed. I love that speech by John F. Kennedy. We all breathe the same air. Let's see who's buying. 544. All right, I'll go 10 more minutes if we can make it that far. I feel like I upset. I didn't mean to upset Somnolier, and I. You gotta walk a mile in somebody else's moccasins. Yeah, JFK is amazing. And RFK is amazing. And Teddy's amazing. All flawed. They're all flawed. They're all flawed. My friend just purchased 446 shares of Finger. Yay! It's 544. Finger withdraws S1 and requests that the SEC consent to the Science Rules filed on September 8th. That means, to me, that means they have another deal pending. They have, because that S1 must have been tied to Benchmark or to the Lind Partners. I don't know. You're looking at it. By withdrawing it, that allows them to file a new one. So I would assume it'll be a better one. No dilution. It's bullish, absolutely. Will GTII run before the end of the year? I don't know. I think Finger's about to run. Obviously, it didn't do it today. And I think when Finger runs, GTII is going to go with it. No, I haven't seen that video since the market's rigged from 2014. But it doesn't surprise me. Flying bus driver. I'll tell you one thing. There's a lot of things we need to talk about more instead of not talking. As Winston Churchill said, it's better to jaw than to war. That's what he said. You can look it up. He also said, I really like RFK Jr. It's intriguing what they will do. I think we're getting closer and closer to a Kamala Harris presidency. And will the Democratic Party, circle around her? I think they probably will. So we're at 544. Let's see what the New York Post has to say about the Trumpster. Well, first, let's see if there's any more news from the world of baseball. Baseball has been very good to me. Baseball. No, it doesn't look like there's more news from baseball. Trump indicted. I can't believe he accepted tens of millions of dollars from China. No, I didn't do that yet, Alan, from Alameda, because I got busy, but I'm going to do it first thing in the morning. Michael Lewis, Steve Croft with Michael Lewis. Wow, I've read all of his books, Michael Lewis. That guy, if we could get him to write a book about what we're going through. Goldman Sachs analyst. So let's read what it says in the New York Post. Former President Donald Trump was indicted Tuesday in connection with his attempts to overturn the 2020 election result. You should never question election results, particularly when Russia interferes with them. With special counsel, or unless Russia interferes with them, with special counsel Jack Smith charging he made knowingly false claims of voter fraud in a desperate bid to stay in power after his defeat by Joe Biden. Trump faces 4 counts: conspiracy to defraud the United States, conspiracy to obstruct an official proceeding, obstruction of an attempt to obstruct an official proceeding, and conspiracy against rights. They're going to get him. Trump pursued unlawful means of discounting legitimate votes and subverting the election results. Good, they're going to get him. They got to get him. 40 federal accounts. 40 federal accounts. Model H122. I like that, East Coast. Winston Churchill also said the art of diplomacy is telling your opponent to go to hell in such a way that they ask for directions. That's good. I'm going to get it I don't know if I'll get it fixed tomorrow, but I'm going to schedule the appointment. Yeah, Liar's Poker was great. All right, so you only have 2 more minutes to kick me around. You only have 2 minutes left. Let's see if there's any more breaking baseball news. It's the trade deadline. At least I don't have plumbing problems. I hope. And at least I have the best dog in the whole world. That's about it. I guess that's going to be all the trades for that's going to be all the trades. Time to go home after 1 month and 4 days over the road. Chicago, you get to go home? Wow. Drive carefully, Abdul Razik. Drive carefully. You can't teach an old dog new tricks. But you can still love an old dog. You can still love an old dog. He's a good boy. He's good. He's old, but he's good. 560 on finger. I can't tell the volume. 1.26 million. So it's up 25 cents in the aftermarket. And Gary Gensler, that's manipulation. But hey. I will, what's my shoulder issue? Heating pad, yeah. Yep. I need a heating pad. I need a 23,000 shares volume on finger. That's not very much, and it went up. Imagine if 500,000 came in to buy. Yeah, but Brendan and Ella, what I was trying in my pitiful way to explain, even if the shares are counterfeit, it costs them to house them somewhere. And when it runs against the prime broker, the prime brokers will buy in without even thinking. Good night to all the street sweepers. And good night, Matilda, too. All right. I'm going to say good night. And I thank everyone. I hope tomorrow we'll have a much more dramatic. By the way, I think it's great. Thank you for pointing it out. I'll read it. But I think it's great they withdrew a previous S1, because the way I read that, possibly, whatever the relationship they had with the Lynn partners might be finito, and that allows them to replace the Lynn partners. So I take it as a real positive. Then let them not think tomorrow and the next day and the next day. Well, I'll do my best, Jenny. I hear a phone ringing. All right. So I'm going to say goodnight, everybody. Peace, love, and happiness. I'm sorry today got off into subjects. Maybe, could I start over? I don't think sommelier would like me to. I made some mistakes. But, yeah, I think this is a pause for the cause. And thank gosh all of you didn't sell. Their tricks aren't working. It's such a puny plan. And when it snaps back, it's going to snap back like some bitch. All right. So anyway, peace to everybody, and we'll catch you on the flip side. And Abdul Razik, drive safely. And thank you again.